Welcome back to Book Break. I've got a really interesting selection of books to talk about in this video. These are all based on strange but true, mysterious, unexplained phenomena, things from history that really happened, and to this day, no one has an explanation. Starting with The Dance Tree by Kieran Millward Hargrave, which is based on the dancing plague of 1518. From July to September of that year, there was an outbreak of a bizarre condition, dancing. It started with one woman who took to the streets of Strasbourg to begin dancing, and by the end of that summer, up to 400 people had joined in. People were dancing for days, leading to some of them even being hospitalized. Some reports claim that people were dancing themselves to death. The authorities had to get involved, and no one could understand why these people, mostly young women, were dancing. At the time, people were blaming everything from overheated blood to demonic possession, and to this day, no one really understands what happened. So, that strange summer inspired Kieran Millward Hargrave to write this book, The Dance Tree, which is set in that summer of 1518. The Wonder by Emma Donoghue is inspired by the phenomenon of fasting girls. So in the 19th century, there are numerous cases reported of girls who claimed not to have eaten any food for impossibly long periods of time. And a lot of people at the time interpreted this as a miracle. These girls became famous for their saintly ability to survive without food. Of course, there were also lots of people who were really skeptical if this could possibly be true. In some extreme cases, the girls even eventually died of starvation. So there was something tragic going on. In the book, The Wonder, which is soon going to be a film starring Florence Pugh, so I'm really excited about that, we follow the fictional story of an Irish girl called Anna O'Donnell. She's 11 years old, and she claims to have been surviving entirely without food. Lib, the character that Florence Pugh is going to play, is an English nurse who is sent to monitor her and investigate the truth. I wanted to include a non-fiction in here if you're interested in stories like that. The Sleeping Beauties is a non-fiction about these fascinating, true psychosomatic illnesses. So cases such as teenagers falling asleep for months or contagious seizures. There have been so many strange but true stories like this that have forced scientists to begin to question who gets to define what is or isn't an illness. I've got two books to recommend based on the mythology around changelings, a fairy child believed to have been left in place of a human child that the fairies have stolen. And the bizarre phenomenon that we find here throughout history is how communities could get this mass hysteria and belief that such a change had happened, leading sometimes to terrible ends, like a true story of a 4-year-old boy who was drowned by his grandmother and a healer who apparently genuinely believed that they were trying to drive the fairy away. The Good People by Hannah Kent is a fictionalized retelling of that story I was just talking about, and it really explores the grief combined with the folklore that can lead to these kinds of misconceived beliefs. Another book on this theme that's very different to the last one is The Changeling by Victor Laval. This one is much more fantastical. So our main character, Apollo Kagwa, has to journey through this enchanted land in order to find his wife after she commits a terrible act. It's set in New York, and the book brings in all of these immigrant legends that still live on this forgotten island in the East River. The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex is based on the true mystery of 3 men who went missing from a lighthouse in the Outer Hebrides. Inside the lighthouse, it was discovered that all of the clocks had stopped, and the table was laid for a meal that had never been eaten. To this day, nobody knows what happened, and there are all sorts of supernatural theories around it. In The Lamplighters, Emma Stonex creates her own version of this story. She moves it to Cornwall in the 70s, but you'll find a lot of the same strange details are in there. It's a sort of ghostly mystery, and also she includes a second timeline 20 years later that follows the women who were left behind and still trying to piece together what might have happened. A slightly more recent unexplained mystery is what happened to Agatha Christie in the 11 days that she went missing. And even Christie herself claimed not to know the answer. 11 days after she went missing from her home, she was found staying in a hotel in Harrogate, staying under the name of her husband's mistress, with seemingly no memory of what she'd been doing. The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont seeks to invent an answer for what might have been going on, and in a really fun twist, it is all narrated from the perspective of her husband's mistress, and it reads like an Agatha Christie mystery of its own. There was one more book that I was going to include in this video, and I'm really interested to see if any of you had the same misconception that I had. So the final book I was going to include is Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay, which all my life I have believed to be based on a true mystery of these students and their teacher who went missing from Hanging Rock in Australia. But it turns out when I went to research for this video, it's just a book. It is not a true story at all, and apparently it's a slightly common misconception that it is based on a true disappearance. So let me know in the comments if you also thought that was a true story, because it turns out it's not. For more recommendations like these, I will leave a link to a video I made before on books based on unbelievable true stories. So do click through and watch that for even more recommendations, and let me know in the comments below any suggestions that you have for me to read, and I'll see you next time.